Thank you all for coming. Call this meeting to order, and our invocation will be by Pastor Chris Hassenper. Please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Chris Hassenpour, and the founding pastor of Anchor Church, and we currently meet at the Sandler Center in Town Center, and really appreciate the opportunity to worship there, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve alongside you guys for the betterment of our community. So let me pray for us. Lord, we pray for our council members tonight. We pray for the people of our community. We pray for each item on the agenda tonight. We thank you for each of the people who serve in our local government, various capacities, and of course, tonight we pray specifically for our council members to have wisdom, and I pray that they would seek the best interest of our community, and with so many controversial issues of our day and so many difficult decisions to make, I pray that they would have balanced and reasonable thinking as they forge a pathway to peace and human flourishing here in our city and in our region. And God, I pray for the personal lives of each council member. Would you protect them and provide for them, show them your love, and make it clear to them that while they do serve our community, they serve you as well, and they've been placed in authority for your purposes. And so thank you for each of them, and thank you for their service. And then lastly, thank you for each community member that's present here tonight. Thank you for their interest in making our community a better place to live and to work and to vacation. And thank you, Lord, for what I imagine is probably going to be varying degrees of passion for our community. I pray, God, that on all sides we would see that there is more that unites us than divides us, and may we work together tonight. I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have the roll call?
Yes, sir, all present.
Okay, may I have a motion for certification of the closed session?
So moved.
Second. Okay, open and second. The vote is open. Oh, okay. Okay, before we do that,
Mr. Moss?
we?
Well, we've already finished that.
Okay,
so-
never mind. Let's go ahead and do the certification of the minutes of the formal and informal sessions, Sue.
So certifications you certified the closed session be in accordance with a motion to recess by a vote of 11 to 0.
Okay. And then the minutes of the formal and informal sessions of December 5th, the 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's open. Okay, at this point, it's our privilege to have the ceremonial, okay, John.
I just wanted to note that I had to leave for part of the executive session because it dealt with property for which I have a conflict of interest.
Yes, sir. By a vote of 11 to 0, you approved the minutes as submitted.
Okay, apologize for going out of order here a little bit. Okay, at this point, it is our honor to have the ceremonial oath of office of Virginia Beach City Council and the Honorable Tina Sinnen presiding.
Yay.
You'll be fine.
Welcome, Tina.
Very much. Pleasure to be here always.
Okay, and first up is our council representative from Rose Hall, District 3, Michael F. Berlucci.
Do you, Michael F. Berlucci, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of City Council of the City of Virginia Beach, Rose Hall District, for a term beginning November 6, 2019, and ending on December 31st, 2020, according to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I will.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And next, the representative of the Beach District, Beach District 6, is Guy Tower.
Raise your right hand. Do you, Guy King Tower, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Virginia Beach City Council Beach District for a 4-year term beginning November 6, 2019, and ending December 31st, 2022, according to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I will.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, would you like to, say a couple words, and, once again, congratulations, Mr. Bellucci.
Well, thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank the people of Virginia Beach for your confidence and for your votes and for the opportunity to serve on this body. And I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who very generously supported my campaign and worked very hard to ensure that the positive, issues-oriented, clean campaign that we put forward to create a bright future for the people who live in Virginia Beach was successful. I'm truly grateful for that. I was born and raised in Virginia Beach and love our community. And I used to say that the greatest honor of my life was being appointed to serve on City Council, but I can now very sincerely say that the greatest honor of my life is now to have been elected to serve on our City Council and to serve the residents of Virginia Beach. It's a great privilege to be here. It's a great privilege to work with all of my colleagues on this body and with the incredible city staff and residents of Virginia Beach and stakeholders in our community to help shape a bright future where everyone in our community will have the opportunity to fulfill their own potential, their great potential. We have many challenges and opportunities before us, and it's our responsibility to work together to be responsive to those challenges and to accept those great opportunities, and I look forward to the opportunity to do so. I will work very hard every day to make Virginia Beach residents proud. Thank you for this great opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tower.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all the members of council for support that you've given Mr. Bellucci and to me since our appointment earlier this year. It's been quite a year for both of us, and your support and your cooperation in initiating us in the ways of the council have been much appreciated. I, too, want to thank all those citizens of Virginia Beach for the opportunity to serve. I, too, want to thank all those of you who voted for me and supported me in this election. My wife here, I want to acknowledge Judge Winship Tower in the audience, who I could not have done any of this without, and any other friends that may be out there. I see some. I won't try to name them all, but thank you for being here today as well. I am excited as I can be to be a member of this council. There are many, many challenges ahead of us, and that's exactly why I chose to put my name in for election. I think these are times that require a great deal of thought, judgment, and enthusiasm for the job, and I certainly have that, as I know Michael does as well. Thank you again for the opportunity and privilege to serve.
Thank you. Again, welcome to both of you. Okay, at this point, we have a presentation from regarding the FEMA Community Rating System, and we're going to have a presentation by Mr. Zane Hazarek, who is the Certified Floodplain Manager Planning Specialist from FEMA Region 3. If you can come up, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm going to read this brief script presentation, but before I do that, I want to say that this is one of my favorite parts of the job, is acknowledging the hard work and positive outcomes of the hard work of localities within FEMA Region 3, and this is something that Virginia Beach should be very proud of. So with that, I'd like to, on the behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia and Federal Emergency Management Agency, formally recognize and congratulate the City of Virginia Beach for its significant accomplishments as a participant in the National Flood Insurance Program's Community Rating System, referred to as CRS. Throughout the United States, there are more than 22,000 communities that voluntarily participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, with 290 located here in Virginia. To join and remain in the NFIP, each community must meet certain minimum criteria. A very small number of participating communities, approximately 5% of the national total and approximately 9% in the Commonwealth of Virginia, choose to go above and beyond these minimum requirements by joining the CRS program. This additional effort produces activities that result in safer communities that are more prepared for future flooding events, including but not limited to the community outreach and higher education, higher regulatory standards such as free board and open space. The City of Virginia Beach is one of an elite group of 26 Virginia localities that have made the commitment to reduce flood risk and increase resiliency through their ongoing efforts in the CRS program. The CRS program includes 10 different class rating levels based on their number and types of activities voluntarily initiated by the participating community. Each level corresponds to a percentage discount on NFIP policy premiums within the locality. Today, we are here to acknowledge the hard work of Virginia Beach and their class rating of a 7. This is something to be very proud of. We are excited about Virginia Beach's increased resiliency to flooding, and although the reduced flood risk is very important, the flood insurance premium discount awarded to a Class 7 CRS community is also important for citizens. Each NFIP policy written in the special flood hazard area in the City of Virginia Beach receives a 15% premium discount and qualifies each eligible NFIP policyholder for an average savings of $140 on their annual premium. This 15% discount would apply to over 8,000 policies. In addition, the policies written in the non-special flood hazard area zones of the city receive a 5% annual premium discount as well. Overall, a Class 7 rating results in a total of $1,264,000 and $3 annually in savings for the citizens of Virginia Beach. The City of Virginia Beach's leadership, hard work, and accomplishments in floodplain management are to be celebrated and commended. On behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the National Flood Insurance Program, we thank Virginia Beach and its hardworking staff and citizens. With that, I'd ask Mr. Mayor if you could come down for a picture with the plaque. We'd like to commemorate this, and Whitney, who's done a lot of work with this, to capture and put on social media if that's okay.
Oh, that's great. Technology's killing us, I'll tell you. Good to see you. And thank you so much for this honor, and thank you so much for what you do. Appreciate it.
Mayor,
And let me, yes,
may I
Ms.
just
Henley?
say, I hope this is just the beginning. I hope that when we start plowing through the rest of those policy recommendations, we find some more areas that we can adopt, and that this will be the beginning of even more savings.
Ms. Henley,
Yeah.
we're bringing something to you in January.
Okay, ready for it.
But I just want to say what, we as a council are honored, and the people of Virginia Beach are grateful. Mr. Leahy, a testimony to the hard efforts of our engineering and all the folks at the city have been working diligently to address our #1 problem, and for this we are thankful.
And I'd like to recognize Whitney McNamara again.
Who just
She was really the lead and the person that I would say you'd give most responsibility, most recognition for this achievement. So.
You got it, and thank you. I tell you what, it's an honor to be proud of. Okay, at this point, I'm going to read our speaker policy as we get into the agenda. I want to remind everyone that the city council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items. As to the other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. When speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. After those who have signed up to speak have spoken, the chair will ask if there are any other persons who wish to speak on the item at hand. Those speakers will be allowed to speak and will be asked to give their name, address, and telephone number to the clerk to record. Also, we have several items under ordinances and resolutions which have only one speaker signed up. As such, the city clerk will call the speaker and identify each item they registered on. The speaker will receive 3 minutes to comment on each item. Okay,
So we have one gentleman who signed up on item 3, Marcus Goring. Would you like to come on up and speak? Mhm.
yeah. It's on the consent agenda, but we want to give you the opportunity to get your views in.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't prepared to do it now because I actually wanted to hear first. I read the whole document about it and just wanted to make a further suggestion to that. Of course, I support that we work on this recovery after accidents that happen on these roads. But what I find more important is that we prevent accidents that happen on the road. And there are quite a few things that I see driving around in Virginia Beach that I think need to be looked on, like the intersection between 264 and Independence Road, Independence Road, where the off-going traffic of 264 ends in a right turning lane. That is, and everybody is crisscrossing over all lanes, and that's a very big cause for accidents. And also ongoing ramps that are 2-lane and then merge into 1 lane. That's also something that you find everywhere in Virginia Beach. What I also think, what we have, there's no crossing the same. You have crossings where the left and straight turning lane are in 1 lane, the other ones it's a right and straight turning lane. And I think it would be good to classify each road and have for the certain classifications of the roads always the same crossings and nothing different. That's always the same. That would make it much easier to navigate around in the city and also easier for people to not get mixed up and cause an accident. That's actually all I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you, Britt. Thank you for taking the time. Next.
And then Ms. Messner is signed up on several items. So J1, excess property, Barbara Messner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so, you want me to start with J1, declaring excess property? Okay. Okay, I've brought this up many times. We should not have excess property, and we especially should not be selling it to one developer who's working on a project. We should retain our property for access and for buffers. The gentleman just talked about traffic. I mean, traffic is a nightmare. Bob Guy just retired, and air roads are horrible. I mean, we should have police patrolling all of our roads. They shouldn't be, we're 85 officers short, I don't know how many times. The police should be catching the speeders. You can hear them speeding on General Booth Boulevard at all hours. You have white sticks in the road. You can't even see those at night. They should at least be, have reflectors on them. Okay, the 5 parcels are Burton Station. I was here in 2017 when those people spoke, the residents. Should be open bids, you know, for any property that's sold, whether it's, you know, that the city owns. The historic black neighborhoods, this is mixed use, which is catchphrase for HUD. A lot of those people can't afford when you build something more expensive. Okay, the next item is supplement to the 2020 legislative agenda. And this is Mr. Dyer. You recommend changes to the public notice requirements for the Planning Commission meetings. I've spoken multiple times about due process and public notices. Ms. Wooten, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to call, and Ms. Henley usually has a couple minutes, but no one else responds. Like last week, I couldn't attend. You allowed a protest rally to block the stairwell and the front door, and, I mean, I'm glad that's not happening tonight, but, it's pretty hard when no one else shows up and I have to do all this at once. But you stopped having the agenda in the Beacon to save money. You waste more money than any city I know of on the East Coast. We have debt, so you can afford to run those ads in the Beacon, and we should have all the information. Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk, what item are we on?
We're on 2A, I believe.
2A, right.
Okay.
Planning Commission meetings by Mr. Dyer, and the next one is yours, Mr. Wood.
Correct.
Temporary detention orders, which, you know, I didn't get a chance to read all of that, but this says supplement, so I assume this means you've added it after you already worked on the legislative agenda before. So we need more time to prepare for these things.
The
And
next
then-
item is 5.
I have 4.
Well, that's
Okay,
going to be
all right.
heard separately, so item
Okay.
5.
Oh, item 5, all right. Item 5 is to extend the conditions, a closure of nearly 10,000 square feet of unimproved portion of Potomac Street. These closures, 10,000 square feet, that's a lot. Like I said, the gentleman talked about traffic. Traffic is horrible. You look at the news, there's an accident every single day, a serious accident. It's uncontrolled growth, and we have reckless drivers that are on the roads that shouldn't be on the road.
Number 7 for exempt real and personal property taxes, Ms. Messner.
Okay. Right, this was last week, so I don't know why it's on the agenda again.
It's for a public hearing.
Okay. Yeah, I oppose all of these tax exemption. We are taxed, the residents pay most of the taxes. The hotels, mega churches, African American Cultural Center, why are we subsidizing a cultural center? And this one is Virginia Gentlemen's Foundation. That's Bruce Thompson's projects. It's $42 million just for the Cavalier. And like I said, I oppose select property tax exemptions for anyone when we're paying the bulk of the taxes.
Item 8B.
8B. Okay, I'm also signed up on A. Is that at another time?
Yes, that's another time.
All right. Okay. B, 39,700 of fund balance from the police, federal, and state seized asset special revenue fund. Police operating budget, you want to purchase 2 utility vehicles. Okay, when I brought up the policing for profit, Mr. Moss challenged me after I sat down. But the Institute for Justice, I hope everyone looks at their website. Their cover page is IJ's plan to end taxation by citation. And they gave the city of Virginia Beach a D rating for abusing their powers on this. So they even take property when someone hasn't even been arrested. So, all right, I just wanted to get that in because Mr. Moss wanted proof, so you can easily look it up. Is there anything else?
And then number 9.
Okay, 9. Ordinance to transfer 4,000 from 2019-2020 non-department operating budget for cultural affairs. You know, the city shouldn't be, when you have debt, you have to prioritize. Public safety, you said the biggest problem is flooding. I disagree. I think what the FBI put on that poster, you know, taking care of corruption was much more important. And crime, we have serious crime. It's not addressed. Our police should not be crowd control for special events to fill hotel rooms in the town center. So I think, you know, Sandler Center is too expensive for the average person. We subsidize Sandler Center and Armada Hoffler. Our children shouldn't have to be denied access to quality cultural events that, you know, sometimes you allow a few people to go. But we can't afford all these things. We have $2 billion debt. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Wood, the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move for approval under ordinances, resolutions. Item 1, ordinance to declare 5 parcels of city property at the intersection of Burton Station and Tolliver Road of the city's needs, and authorize the city manager to sell same to Seniors Unlimited Lifestyles, Ray Affordable Senior and Disabled Housing. Item J2, resolutions to support the city's 2020 legislative agenda. A, change the public notice requirements regarding planning commission meetings, and B, amend the state code rate temporary detention orders, noting that both of these items are on consent for deferral until January 7th, 2020. Item 3, resolution to support traffic incident management legislation in the 2020 Virginia General Assembly session. Item 5, ordinance to extend the date to satisfy the conditions rate closure of 9812 square feet unimproved portion of Potomac Street. Item 6, ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute an amendment to the purchase agreement between the City of Virginia Beach and Princess Anne Hotel LLC regarding sale of city property at the intersection of Princess Anne Road and Community College Place, noting that Ms. Abbott and Mr. Moss are voting no. Item 7, ordinance to designate as exempt real and personal property taxes, A, 99 for the one, B, African American Cultural Center Incorporated, C, Cornerstone Property Ventures LLC, D, Courthouse Area Charity, E, DC Art Institute of Virginia Beach, noting that's consent for deferral until January 21st, 2020. F, DC South University of Virginia LLC, note that's consent for deferral to January 21st, 2020. G, Eliza Hope Foundation. H, Free Foundation for Rehabilitation Equipment and Endowment. I, In-Home Health LLC, noting that that is consent for deferral till January 21st, 2020. J, I Rock My Scars Incorporated. K, Millspow Missions International. L, PACH LLC. M, the Red Horse Running Equine Foundation. N, the Sandler Center for the Performing Arts Foundation Incorporated. O, THSB LLC. P, Victory Innovation Christian Academy. Q, Virginia Beach Arts Center. R, Virginia Gentleman Foundation. S, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame Foundation Incorporated. Item 8, ordinance to appropriate B, $39,700 of fund balance from the police, federal, and state seized asset special revenue fund to the FY 1920 police operating budget regarding purchase of 2 utility vehicles. And 9, it's kind of stereo here. 9, ordinance to transfer $4,900 from the FY 2019-20 non-departmental operating budget to the Department of Cultural Affairs regarding the United States Navy Band's concert at the Sandler Center. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any comment? Vote is open.
One comment.
Yep, John?
This is on the item with regards to the Princess Anne Hotel. I didn't initially vote for this on the original contract. I felt that, well, this may be a good deal. That land there is very well suited for affordable housing. That's one of the biggest deficits we face. That land and parcel has very good access both to the hospital and other jobs that pay the wages those people usually pursue. It's got good transit, and it represented a great opportunity. We don't have many opportunities because land is so expensive, and I really don't believe that meeting that need got adequate consideration in the business case analysis that let us go in for a hotel rather than meeting the need for affordable housing for our least fortunate residents. I voted no for that reason before, and I vote no again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Ralph, may I have
So,
your-
item 4, J4.
Ms. Wooten, may I have your vote, please, for the consent agenda? Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Moss, you're only voting no for that one item on the consent agenda, right?
Correct.
Right?
No.
Oh, we already closed it. So by a vote of 11 to 0,
I thought
noting
you were
Mr.
asking.
Moss actually voted yes for the consent agenda, noting his nay vote on the item number 6. You've approved the consent agenda as read by the Vice Mayor Wood.
Okay, thank you. I guess we're moving forward on ordinances resolution, item 4, ordinance to add section 6-21 to the city code to prohibit tents, shelters, or structures on beaches between 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
First speaker is Scott Flax, and then the next speaker will be Barbara Messner.
Welcome.
Morning, Mayor, or afternoon, Mayor. Thank you all for allowing me to speak. My name is Scott Flax. I'm a lifelong resident of Virginia Beach. I currently have a home in Thalia, but in doing a renovation of that home, we have a winter rental on Oceanfront Avenue. So this winter, I spent a lot of time on the boardwalk running up and down, and I've seen the pier and seen the tents where the people reside underneath the pier. And I can understand why we'd want a resolution, because I can see where people may think it's an eyesore or an issue. But in reading the statute and reading the consideration says, the police department has requested a new ordinance be punishable as a Class 2 misdemeanor. Class 2 misdemeanor, of course, carries 6 months in jail. So we'd be potentially jailing homeless people, and I would assume these people living in these tents, they're not doing it because that's the best spot to do it. They can go to First Landing if they were doing it from a vacation spot. They're doing it because they have nowhere else to live. So we'd be giving a Class 2 misdemeanor, 6 months in jail, and up to a $1,000 fine for people who have nowhere else to live. That's one problem with the ordinance. The second problem with the ordinance, and it goes on in the considerations, has requested the new ordinance be punishable as a Class 2 misdemeanor to assist in enforcement efforts to remove prohibited structures from the beach. So what this statute would allow the police department to do, in essence, is throw away these people's tents. Because that's what would happen. If they got arrested for being there and sleeping there in their tent, they're removing it. They're not going to pack it up back in the bag and wait for them when they get released from jail. It's going to find the nearest disposal. And their home, because that's what it is, their home is going to be destroyed. And all of the contents in their home are going to be destroyed. There is no provision, no protection for these individuals, these people who have nothing else. Again, if someone could show me that these people are tenting up there because it's a vacation spot, I don't know who's tenting up on well, today's a beautiful day, but tomorrow is going to be cold. No one's tenting up there when it's 30 degrees outside unless they have to. And we are creating a statute, an ordinance, that is making it so we are able to throw away their tents, throw away their homes. Every other ordinance under Section 6, I see my light blinking, is a Class 4 misdemeanor. That's just a fine. No jailable ability. If we don't want them sleeping on the beach, look under Section 6.4, sleeping on the beach. The police can tell you, you got to go, and give you a fine if they want to. If you don't want them to have obstructing beach structures, look under 6.2. All this is doing is allowing the police to literally throw away someone's home.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The
Thank you,
next
Council.
speaker is Barbara Messner. And then after Ms. Messner is Tim Worst.
Wow. That was pretty impressive. Somebody did their research and cares about the homeless. Unlike most of the people on the city, I used to volunteer to help Brenda McCormick, who helped the homeless, and especially battered women and children, and y'all arrested her for not taking donations at her home. I don't know how much that gentleman knows, but I want to bring up Bobby Dyer. You know, right here, there is an ad for Judeo-Christian Outreach. Judeo-Christian Outreach and Penn Ministries are picking up the slack. That $26 million regional homeless shelter that y'all built, that's only 22 beds for men overnight. And they have to, whatever possessions they have to bring with them. Put under a seat on a bus. They have to check in at 3 o'clock the day before, or that day, and then come back. And it's first come, first serve. First come, first serve. So they're taking donations, Judeo-Christian and Penn Ministry, to pay for meals and toiletries and things that y'all don't provide. That building is administrative for regional. We paid for it, but it's regional. Speaking of funding, you're already asking for donations, and you have a button, Mr. Dyer, to contribute to the United Way. Here's the United Way. They're using ad money. So like I said, the city puts up tents all the time. You put up tents on the boardwalk, the grassy area, everything. But the homeless people, their properties, you let them. In 2012, you allowed them to sleep in the woods. That entire square mile has been removed because of your entertainment district, the sports center, which was the arena. It's discrimination for you to use it for commercial venue when it's their public beach. But I didn't even know, what you were going to do to these people. That's hideous. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tim Worst, and after Mr. Worst is Stephen Johnston.
Welcome, Tim.
Well, I don't want to sound like the bad guy, but I like the idea of this new ordinance or this new law for the people who are not allowed to sleep underneath the pier. And I'm one of those people that commented all throughout the summer on Facebook when they would show pictures of hammocks and whatnot. So that's one of my questions I wrote down. Does this include hammocks, beach chairs that they hang out on overnight, and then through the morning, blankets that are fashioned that they keep overnight and sleep there as well? And that's not to sound like the mean guy, but it looks horrible for us as a beach to go to and for people to pay hundreds of dollars each night when you wake up in the morning and you see that all around the pier, all around underneath the pier in that area. It looks bad. It looks horrible. And I don't think that we should charge them with some huge fine or put them in jail for 6 months. I'm not a police officer. I've done my ride-alongs. I can appreciate what they do. I don't see them charging people right away. I don't see them throwing away blankets and tents and hammocks. I just don't see that happening. Our Virginia Beach police officers are not like that. I don't see that happening, but I do like the idea of this ordinance, and I do like the idea of that cleaning up that area. And like it's been said, I don't think it happens tomorrow when it's 40 degrees, but it's throughout the summer when we have those nicer areas or nicer type of weather. That's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Stephen Johnston, and after Mr. Johnston is Jimmy Frost.
Welcome.
Well, at first I didn't think about the homeless situation, and I was looking at it from a different angle. What do we do in the summertime when people want to set up a party tent on the ocean front? I think that is what this ordinance is designed to stop. However, I think the ordinance is too broadly written. I'd like to see it narrowed down more. So in the part where it says any beach, I think we should be more specific. Which beach? The oceanfront beach and the bay and Chesapeake Bayfront beach. And I think we should say all public beaches, not just enforce this ordinance on a private homeowner who has a house on Back Bay that has a beach on it, and he's not allowed to set up a tent in his backyard, invite his friends over to have a party. This is going to limit our freedoms a little bit, but we should do it in a restrictive manner. If we want to limit the tents and structures on the oceanfront beach and on Chesapeake Bay Beach, we need to say those specific beaches and let the citizens and the private property owners be able to use and enjoy their property that they have and pay taxes on down in the Back Bay area. Thank you.
Jimmy Frost?
Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm so casual. Somebody wanted their lawn cut in December, and I don't know why. I did the point in time survey last year. Basically, if you don't know, I'm sure you do, what it is you have to get up very early on a very cold morning in February and go out in the city to look for and find to count the homeless. It's an eye-opener. I mean, if I'm out there for a couple of hours and I can't feel the ends of my fingers, what do you think somebody who's out there all night is going through? One of the things they don't ask is that they don't ask these people where they came from. There was a story that ran last month in the the New York Post about the city of New York is actually paying to ship their homeless people out of the city and send them to over 373 cities across the nation. Are they coming here? I bet they are. We don't know that. But I would also say that no matter how many they ship out, there are always going to be more. There will always be more. Jesus told us 2,000 years ago, the poor will always be with you. I think that if you slap a $1,000 fine on somebody sleeping on the beach because they're homeless and take away their tent and send them to jail for 6 months, they're going to laugh at you because they're never going to pay the fine, and you just solved their biggest problem for the next 6 months. But this is a bad piece of law because you're basically criminalizing something that happens to people that should not happen in our society. We're a very expensive city to live in. You all know that. And a lot of people, myself included, run on the razor's edge of an economic disaster. So why would you want to kick somebody when they're down? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I know I had said in the informal session that I thought a deferral was the appropriate action. I do actually think we should move to decline this, and I'm going to make a motion to decline, and if we feel that we need to reevaluate how we handle tents on the oceanfront, I think we should, as our body, should collectively give input on what that should look like. But as this reads right now, I can't support any of it, so I would move for.
I second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I have a substitute motion
Okay.
that we defer it till January 21st, 2020, like we discussed in the informal session. And the reason I say that is people saw us say that, and they're expecting to see us have a presentation on it, and I think it would be disingenuous just to go ahead and dismiss it without having people hear the police department's presentation as well as Department of Housing's presentation on it.
Second.
Okay, we have a thing. Okay, discussion.
I agree with Jessica and Spirit, but I do also believe we sent a message out about what we would do. But I will say, we may have a meeting on the 21st, and we may get a brief, but I don't find anything about that ordinance that, as it's written, that's acceptable. And I think our process has failed us that came and got on our agenda to be out here in front of the public before we had a chance to informally see that, to see whether or not that even reflected the values of this body. And I just want to make clear, I don't associate myself with the values in that ordinance.
Okay, anybody else? Sabrina?
I'd just like to say that I find the ordinance problematic because it affects our homeless population. And from my understanding, they make up about 1% of our community, but they're very important. And if this ordinance is going to negatively impact them in any way, causing them to be locked up, causing their home to be thrown away, that's not something that I will support now or when it's deferred.
Okay, Mr. Bellucci.
I'd just like to take an opportunity to state that I appreciate the spirit of Councilmember Abbott's motion to decline, and I share many of her concerns, some of the concerns that she raised in our previous conversation during the workshop as well as here. But I do plan to support Vice Mayor Wood's substitute motion on the basis that I think it's important we do have a discussion about this. We're on the precipice of having what I think could be an insightful and a thoughtful and a comprehensive review and dialogue about the issue of homelessness in Virginia Beach. And I very much would like to engage in that dialogue, and I would encourage the council to consider not only having a discussion about this issue, but having a discussion about the issue of homelessness in Virginia Beach and how our city can be responsive to that issue and work with nonprofit organizations and interested and concerned citizens to have the most effective response. We've seen where this has gone awry in other communities. We've seen, particularly in some cities that I won't name here, on the West Coast, where the issue of homelessness has become a tremendous nuisance and a burden on the community, and it doesn't have to be. And I think in Virginia Beach, we have this unique opportunity to set a new pathway forward, to have a really refreshing, compassionate dialogue about how to address this issue. And I think we should take this opportunity to do it now. And every aspect of that conversation should be done with respect and compassion, and one that conveys the dignity and humanity upon each person who is experiencing homelessness. And I look forward to that dialogue, and I hope we can have that comprehensive discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wood, then Mr. Tower.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, the reason I said January 21st, because that gives us 2 meetings between now and then to actually discuss it before anything comes forward, because it sounds like it would be, based on what I know of the issue and what folks have said, is that there's certainly another way to do this, but it is a problem, and perhaps it could be crafted better before the 21st. So that was my reason for saying that. So I think that might be the way to do it.
Mr. Tower.
I would just associate myself both with Mr. Berlucci's comments and Mr. Woods. I think this is an item that needs discussion. I share the compassion and concern for the homeless population in Virginia Beach. I also, though, am very concerned from the standpoint of protecting our investment of billions of dollars that we are so dependent on to actually take care of people who need care as well. And so we've got to find a balance here, but that's not easy to do. Takes discussion, takes thought, takes input from a lot of different people, and I look forward to that discussion. Thanks.
Stanley?
I would request that maybe sometime before the 21st, if that's when we're going to have a discussion here, we set up an opportunity for us all over a span of a couple of hours, maybe not there right at the same time, to visit the Housing Resource Center, which has been open now about 15 months. And I think we have a pretty broad program there for the homeless. And I think we need to know exactly where we are now when we have this discussion. So I think it would be very good if the staff there were able to provide sort of an open house for council to come by and tour it and to get a briefing on what they have experienced over the last 15 months that it's been open.
Okay, Aaron and then Jessica.
I'm looking forward to this important discussion we're going to have on homelessness, but it's important that we look at it with a holistic view on some of the things that cause homelessness, whether it's transitional housing as well, livable wages, affordable housing within our communities, high-paying jobs, the economy, a lot of things that, and also mental health is a huge part of that as well. So if we're going to have this discussion, it needs to be an entirely holistic, inclusive discussion with many departments, because we can talk about it all day, but at the end of the day, it's going to take action. And our center that we have at Woodstock, it's a great complex. A lot of our community leaders, a lot of private investment went to making that facility state-of-the-art and what it is. But again, our homeless situation, we don't want it to become an epidemic like some other communities around in the nation. And even though we have that at Woodstock, a lot of our issues are with homelessness are, I shouldn't say centered around, but usually finds itself on our ocean front, which is quite a bit of ways away from Woodstock Road. So while we're having that discussion, another tab would be upon transportation, with that aspect of getting our homeless these people from the ocean front to this valuable resource like this center. But again, it's going to take action, and it's going to take collaboration of partnerships amongst many members of our community. So we're going to have this discussion on the 21st. I hope that we can invite many members to attend.
I think we'll have the discussion prior to the 21st. Jess?
I just wanted to, I want to move to decline this, not because I don't want to have a discussion. I think a discussion is absolutely necessary, and if there is concern for safety, not only of the people around these tents, but the safety of the people who are erecting them, I think that's important when we have those discussions. But this ordinance, as it stands right now, criminalizes homelessness, and I can't support that. And so I don't believe declining this makes us not able to have that discussion at a future meeting. And furthermore, I think if we need to address this issue, we should have been briefed that it was an issue. No one has ever reached out to me and complained that they saw a tent underneath a pier. And if it is an issue, we should have been brought a variety of options by staff so that we could have had a constructive conversation before we started getting calls from the press and reached out by our constituencies because they were concerned as what the implications of what these things mean. But this is criminalizing homelessness, and homeless people do not belong in jails. And that's not what the purpose of our jails are for, and that isn't where those resources should be going to. We should be finding the avenues that are appropriate to solve homelessness and putting efforts there. But I don't think declining this ordinance precludes a conversation at a later date, and that's why I will not be supporting the deferral. And hope that I can have support on declining this one.
Hey, Rosemary?
I think this is all good discussion, and I support the deferral. Of course, I don't think anybody chooses to be homeless. And this may be an overreach, but I also don't think that the beach is where they should be sleeping. But I do think that they need resources and they need help, and that's what's got to happen, so that they can get the help that they need to end homelessness. And our resource center is wonderful, but there's also the churches, the JCOC, the Penn Ministries. There's a lot of other advocacies out there to help them. So I welcome us looking into this, and we need to do what we can to get these people with a roof over their head, with the basic needs of food, clothes, shelter, and love.
Okay, John?
I just want to thank the people who came out, because obviously this isn't a place easy for the homeless to come. And it was nice to see the people come out and speak on behalf and say the very same things I think many of us up on the dais were thinking. It's very nice of them to come out.
I concur. Okay. We vote on the substitute first?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the substitute motion to defer.
By a vote of 8-3, you have deferred this item until January 21st, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Do we have to vote on the primary?
It is a motion to defer, there's nothing left.
Okay,
to
nothing
vote
left,
on.
okay, but, once again, I thank you for the conversation, and this is a definite problem that we as a council and we as a society have to confront, and I thank everybody for their input. All right, moving on. 8A, okay. Ordinance to appropriate $26,079,150 from fiscal year 2018-19 school reversion funds and establish CIP number 1024 Lynn Haven Middle School expansion in fiscal year 2019-20 capital improvement program deferred from December 3rd, 2019. Speakers.
The first speaker is Stephen Johnston. And then after Mr. Johnston will be Barbara Messner.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. First off, I'd like to thank everybody on City Council for tapping the brakes on this issue and looking into it, doing a lot of research. I wasn't able to watch the entire briefing this afternoon. I was at work. I did watch most of it, and I thought it was very informative. State of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia requires a balanced budget. It's in the Constitution. It's in the laws. In 1995, the Virginia Beach School Board had a $12 million deficit. The entire school board was asked to resign. That's not a balanced budget. For the last 4 consecutive years, the school board has run a surplus budget, which is also against the law in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This year, the surplus is $19 million plus some extra money that some extra revenues that came in for a total of $26 million. That's tax dollars coming out of my pockets, coming out of all the taxpayers' pockets. They should not have gotten, and it is against the law in Virginia for them to do that. Now, as far as the reversion funds, it's been a general understood policy that those get returned back to the schools. And the schools are spending it very similar to like when a young adult gets their income tax return. They take it and they spend it on things they want, not things they need. And if you look at the things that they're buying this year with their extra revenue money, they're buying new things like new cars and buses. They're buying new curtains. They're buying every classroom will get a brand new big screen TV. Yes, Mr. Berlucci, they're replacing these smart boards with big screen TVs, not putting new smart boards back. The only thing that's really being responsibly done here is funding full day kindergarten. And the only reason they're doing that is because you told them to. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. They've objected to that at their own meetings. And ironically, tonight, the school board starts their budget hearings. I'd love to have been there tonight, but unfortunately, there's a conflict. Hopefully, they can take the lesson learned here and not have a surplus budget for next year where they can have a slush fund to spend on the things that they want and not the things that they need. This is the Commonwealth of Virginia. The taxpayers deserve better care for our money going to our schools. We need the money for schools and education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Messner?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry.
pardon me.
Yes.
Since my name was mentioned, I'd just like to take a moment it's okay, you can sit down, Mr. Johnson, thanks. I just want to take a moment to clarify my understanding of the discussion we had, in fact, was about whiteboards. I'm not in any way disputing that there may be also smart TVs installed in the classrooms, but I do believe that the budget request here was for the replacement and enhancement of whiteboards in the classrooms, which are part of a 21st century classroom experience, according to my understanding, as well as my understanding of the conversation that I had with the superintendent this afternoon during the workshop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellucci.
Barbara Messner, and after Ms. Messner is Tim Worst.
Good evening. Okay, I need to bring up the fact that I was unable to speak last week. A lot of people were unable to speak. That has not been addressed. There hasn't been any apology. You posted on the website this afternoon that it was going to be a packed house. You kind of intimidated people. We thought it was going to be another protest from the Second Amendment people who should ask to be sponsored to come here. And this is a reply from Mayor Sessoms. He actually responded to my emails, which you don't, Mr. Dyer, asking for a change of venue for the large agenda items. People would come if they didn't have to drive out here and worry about getting a seat and knowing what's going on. As far as the schools, Public-Private Education Act, sports centers, field houses, fancy rec centers. Their money is being wasted, and I don't even know what the superintendent's salary is. It's over $250,000. It's probably closer to $300,000 plus his yearly allowance. I was here in '95 when that $12 million was missing. We need to fix our blighted schools. No child should be in a portable classroom. We have shootings and, here at City Hall, at Building 2. You didn't have security there. Our kids should not be, no child should be in a portable classroom. You should not be building a new Taj Mahal for yourself that's secure before the schools are fixed. That was in 2011 when you ran, Mr. Moss, that was one of yours. You know, Princess Anne is one of the blightest schools. It's just horrible. And the school buses, replacing school buses. You use old school buses on the beach for the monster truck shows. The school bus drivers and the buses get worn out. They're for special events, even going to Waterside. Another rap festival, that was approved by everyone on the school board last year, and now it's going to be an entire week. So, Mr. Moss, since you block your page, I read the long thing where you were, you asked the city manager, and you posted like 24 hours ago.
Thank you very much, Ms. Messer.
That just came on. The yellow light just came on. That's 30-second warning.
Okay, and
It's
now you
been
got the
on.
red light.
You have a red
Right.
light.
Thank you.
Tim Worst.
Welcome back, Dan.
Thank you very much. Just a tidbit on those school buses. There are some really old school buses with several hundreds of thousands of miles on them. I drove them for about 6 months last year. So that's a good thing that we're replacing those buses. But one of the notes that I made on here was about the buses. Items that we need to do or that we want to do that cause us to have more bus drivers or need more buses. You got to think about how hard it is to hire those bus drivers. We're constantly looking for bus drivers. And one of those things is the pay. I could go on and on about that, but those buses have to be replaced. There's some really old ones out there. So there was a safety thing there. On the budget, on the school board budget, I have learned quite a bit on this over the last couple of weeks and listening today after the session on my phone. Those millions of dollars in excess that get my blood boiling aren't as bad as I previously thought because they are a smaller percentage than what I thought earlier. But I think we can do better if we continually see that we have $20 million in surplus as we have in the last 5 years. Vacancies can be taken into consideration in a better manner. The term normal practice was used over and over today. A normal practice doesn't mean that it's a good practice. A normal practice is something that's done over and over. That doesn't mean that it can't be changed or shouldn't be changed. I already talked about the school buses. Somebody on council today said that they were worried about having enough of a debt limit for all the educational needs and to have that money. But that should have been thought of before we put hundreds of millions of dollars just into the ocean front and put a lot of our debt capacity there. And as a substitute teacher, that I enjoy the heck out of it. And just a note, I had a fantastic class today at Princess Anne Elementary, one of the very best. I see the Achievable Dreams kids, love it to death. I love that you can see them in collared shirts or their ties. So I like the program. But like Ms. Henley said today, we also need to worry about those kids that are at Betty F. Williams, that are at Kempsville High School, that are at First Colonial and Princess Anne, where I was the other day. Those are old schools that affect thousands of kids that we could also be thinking about. And I appreciate the passion that Dr. Spence spoke with today, because I went through Virginia Beach schools. Several of you guys went through Virginia Beach schools. So I appreciate that. And my daughter will be the last one going through for our family. But just because you've done it for years in the past doesn't mean you have to give 100% of those funds back to the school board if you don't think they're spending it the correct way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
That's all the speakers, sir.
I'd like to move for approval.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Okay, well,
I'd like to divide the question because there is an issue here that deals with the reversion funds, and establishing the CIP is a substantively different question. I'd like to divide the question into 2 votes. I do believe that's permissible.
okay.
How does that work?
How would you divide it, sir?
For the approval of the school revision funds is 26 million. We've done this before, just like the operating budget, and the CIP is a separate vote.
So you would take out the CIP, you would vote on the CIP version for the items designated for the CIP and vote on the items designated for operating?
Correct. That's what we do with the operating budget. It's 2 separate questions, and it is divisible.
It is divisible, that is a motion that would require a second and then a vote, though.
I think you're parliamentary entitled to a division of the question.
Well, if they relate to the same subject matter, they can be combined together, and then it's a motion, I believe a motion to separate is appropriate, where they would have to be divided if they did not relate to the same subject matter. They would
I
have to
will
be related by.
second to divide the question. I'll make a motion. Yes.
Oh, I'll second it.
So the first thing you're voting on is whether or not to divide the question to separate the operational item from the CIP item.
Okay, we're voting on, okay.
Mr. Tower, may I have your vote, please? You close that, please. By a vote of 4 to 7, that motion has failed.
Okay. Okay, do we, go back to the, we have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion?
Motion to approve.
We've already got a motion.
We got a motion to approve with a second. We're in, now we're in discussion.
Well, I'm not going to repeat everything I said in the informal session the other week, but it is unfortunate that we aren't voting on what we have to vote on tonight that makes sense, which is the Achievable Dream Academy, and people were purposely wanting to put both things together, when in fact the justification for the remaining part of the reversion funds is far from the highest priorities in the school system or the highest priorities for the city, because that is our money. But do correct one thing. The school board, if it runs a surplus, is not breaking the law. They can't run a surplus. At the end of the year, when they balance the books by state law, all their surplus revenues revert to the public. I don't like to say the city, because they belong to the taxpayers. And then we get to decide whether to give it back to the taxpayers, spend it on something on the city side, spend it on something on the school board. It's the public's money, and we should be allocating that money to its highest and best use. I don't believe that what they came up with is the highest and best use. Difference of opinion. They consistently run surpluses, so I do believe that we are overtaxing people more than we need to. Philosophical difference, but if you're out there in a family who isn't running a margin of your budget of even 0.5%, 2% would seem like Christmas, and that might be how you pay for your Christmas. So I think we have to remember whose money we are talking about. It's like this abstract thing. You know, it's city money, school board money. No, it's the people's money. That's whose money it is. Now, unfortunately, now the question is, this is like in Congress. You vote to get the thing you think is worthy of a vote. You got to vote for something that's not. Well, I've never worried about just doing the right thing. I am not voting yes. I would prefer to vote yes for the Dreamville Academy, but this is forcing as if the school board has made good choices on the other side. They have not. And that's unfortunate. I think that's going to hurt the school board when they try to go to bond referendums when they haven't judiciously used the money that they've had. And they're going to have a rough road to hoe when people are struggling financially at home and then asking them to make additional sacrifices. I think that will be a very, very tough sell. They don't eat lunches on the taxpayers' budget. They don't do renovations on the taxpayers' budget in their homes. You know, they do what they have to do, and they are struggling. And this doesn't reflect priorities of struggling households.
Thank you. Anybody else for discussion? Ms. Henley.
Well, I have a great deal of respect for the school board and the work that they do, and I have a lot of respect for the fact that they are elected and that they do a lot of their analysis before they send something to us. I happen to disagree with what they have sent to us entirely this time. I particularly was surprised to see that we're being asked to establish a new capital project, 1-024, for the expansion of Lynn Haven Middle School for the specific purpose of housing the secondary component of the Achievable Dream program. And the Achievable Dream program is a very good program. And I think it's laudable that we have people who are raising funds to fund that program, and that we have it offered to students in our schools, and that it will grow to be a full K-12 program. But there are a lot of things that also give me concern. And that is the fact that we have this very long list of schools that the school board feels we need to modernize and replace. And it's a daunting list to think that we might be able to, at some point over the next 100 years, replace and modernize those schools. And that gives me a lot of concern for making certain that as we spend every dollar, that we are spending it very carefully to make certain that we are prioritizing as we should. And I ask today in the informal session to be absolutely assured that the school board unequivocally believes that this expansion of the Achievable Dream program by adding a new wing to the Lynn Haven Middle School is their absolute top priority. And I was assured that that is what they believe. I saw this as another opportunity. I still believe that they could do the Achievable Dream program through the secondary schools by using existing capacity in the schools. I know they would like to be a standalone school, but we can't always have absolutely everything we want. But that would then allow this $13 million that we're going to spend on expanding this school for a narrow group to be used on one of these other schools. And the next one in line coming in the CIP after Princess Anne High School, which is pretty well funded through the CIP, is Betty F. Williams, which serves much of the same demographic in the western part of the city. But if we don't use this money to advance that, which I think we could advance it by several years, it's going to be 10 years before that school is replaced. And I just think we're losing a great opportunity. I saw this as an opportunity to do both. I don't really see this as an either or. I see it as a both and opportunity. But I think we're losing that other opportunity, and I really don't see us getting it back because I don't see another pot of money. I was wanting to support this $4 million of reversion money into the B.F. Williams project, and then dedicating the entire sale of that former Lincoln Park Elementary School, which is supposed to be about $12.5 million, for Betty F. Williams. And then we would be pretty far along in being able to replace that school. But now we're going to be using that money, most of that money, for this more narrow purpose, which is a very good purpose, but which I think we could achieve within our present capacity. So I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed that I don't think this is the right decision, but I do recognize the school board's role of being able to determine where the money is going to be spent, and that the city council really can't mandate how money is going to be spent. And so I will just respectfully disagree with how this is going to be spent and hope that it works out for the best.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, vote's open.
By a vote of 10 to 1, you've approved the motion.
Okay, those are all the items, under ordinances, appointees. Mr. Wood?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I nominate the following individuals to the Bayfront Advisory Commission: Morgan Ayers, to Community Policy and Management Team, Amanda Caton, Roni Myers-Daub, Olympia Perkins, and Angela Hicks, and Aileen Smith. To the Historic Preservation Commission, Christy Lyons and Ian Lehotch. To the Investigative Review Panel, Cliff Rice.
Excuse me, what was that name?
Cliff Rice.
No, the one you said before, Lee.
Lehotch.
Michael, is that correct?
That's correct, Lee Hodge.
Lee, okay, just
Consensus Grove.
Yeah, all right.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure. To the Open Space Advisory Committee, Vince Bowers. To the Resort Advisory Commission, Lori Overholt, Charles Caton, and George Coderides. To the Virginia Beach Community Development Corporation, Wanda Cooper and Courtney Lalonde.
Okay. Okay, vote is open.
By a vote of 11-0, you have appointed those named by Vice Mayor Wood.
Any unfinished business?
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to come back to the item I brought up last week under unfinished business, which was the incident of the $374,000 tax bill that the taxpayers got because we didn't competently do the design work. We did get an answer, but the answer only, from the city manager, only addressed as to why we were notified so late. How come we didn't know until December the 3rd when he knew on November the 15th? And why was he notified so late when that was known during the summer? And there was an explanation there, but if accountability is something you believe in, I didn't see any accountability in that explanation. But more importantly, what we didn't learn is why was the 90% design fail, which we did, fail to understand the conflicts in the geotechnical surface when we have all this digitized stuff of our city. How is it that the mistake was made such that when we sent it to PHR, AKA Bruce Thompson, and he signs off on it, now we've agreed, and then he goes and does his work, and oops, a $374,000 bill, and now we get it. Whereas if we had I believe, fully exercised all this digitized geotechnical data we had, we should have known and seen this conflict in the subsurface, and we shouldn't have had this bill. We still have not got an explanation, a root cause analysis as how did a 90% design get completed, and all the information that we have about the city's subsurface structure, and we not know this existed from the start. We did not get that answer. And now the stormwater utility system and the taxpayers and the user fees of that system are making up for that mistake. We didn't get the answer.
Mr. Leahy?
So I can give you an answer now, I can give you an answer in writing. What would be your preference?
Yeah, oh, please.
If you want to give one out, I always prefer stuff in writing afterwards because I think people think more and contemplative when things are in writing than when they're verbalized, but I still would want it in writing because I would want that for posterity.
Yeah, if you can do that in writing, Mr. Leahy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any new business? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Merry Christmas, 21.
Merry.